What happens when you match the aura of a five-time world champion grandmaster and the riz of the youngest grandmaster? The internet goes crazy, the campaign goes viral, and the brand and the spot in this case wins. I got on a quick call with Sunder Balasubramanian, CMO of Myntra, to understand the rationale behind one of the first unexpected collaborations of 2025, Myntra Forward's Gukesh x Vishy Surface Off. Welcome to the quick call, Sundar. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me, Hitesh.
So, Sundar, a lot has been talked about this campaign ever since it came out. And my first thought when I saw the campaign was, how did you and the team manage to get Gukesh and Vishy sir to do this in the first place? While we get to that in the later half of this conversation, I want to know, what was the core objective behind this campaign? Is this a part of a brief that you shared with the agency, or a proactive pitch that you received on your table?
I mean, it started with a brief. For us, Forward is the destination for Gen Z that we're building. And I think in some of the work that we've been doing and some of the consumer immersions that we've been doing, a key need for us was to establish Forward as distinct from Myntra overall, right? Myntra serves many needs across many audiences. Forward being specific to Gen Z was one specific distinctness that we needed to add that was probably not as clear to audiences. So, one of the objectives was carve out Forward as something different from Myntra. And I think the second one we wanted to definitely land was the difference in Forward is, yes, it's for Gen Z, but it is for all kinds of Gen Z. Within, if I just step back and look at Myntra and what it means to from a fashion perspective, we are seen as a platform of brands, global brands, international brands, etc. But we are seen as a platform which is potentially mid market and above, right? Uh, Versus that, Forward, we clearly wanted to establish was a platform for all kinds of Gen Z in the country. So these were probably, if I started out in terms of sharpness of what we wanted to land, was one, Forward is a distinct part of Myntra. And second, that it is for all kinds of Gen Z. I think those were the two pieces that we kind of sought to land with this. That was the brief.
Got it. And how did you all crack the big idea, in the sense that the agency came up with this crazy thought and you signed on it on the first go, or there were some renditions, some revisions that happen on the move before closing on something like this?
Yeah. No, of course, agency came with multiple options and routes in terms of how we could approach it. But I think, in some of the work over the last 1 year with Gen Z, we've learned a few things in terms of what works or doesn't work with them,
Right.
right? I think for them, linear storytelling generally doesn't seem to land much because it's very difficult to get their attention, right? They are people who are exposed to a level of content that is unprecedented versus any other kind of audience. So you need something to get their attention. You need something non-linear is one. And as you probe a little bit more, their natural leaning in tends to be on anything which, for want of another word, is humor slash meme forward kind of content is what lands more to them. So we kind of knew the space that we wanted to be in, and then we were exploring different ways of doing it. And I think the one that comes up a lot, and it's a little bit of an interesting tension that Gen Z have themselves, is their relationship with, as they put it, the older audiences or millennials, right? There is a little bit of no one else understands us, and that natural tension between Gen Z and millennials. So that came up as a very interesting space for us to kind of explore. So when the agency did come back to us, it was on explorations on this space itself.
So there was a lot of element of surprise. You don't, like, in the wildest of dreams, you don't imagine Gukesh talking like this to someone so senior like Vishy sir, and that too, like, knowing both the personalities that way. So presenting that element of surprise in an ad, I think that actually hooked in the audiences, and obviously the script was written in such a tighter way that everything else flowed. Um, and like for me, I think the moment Vishy sir says that uh, मेरे पास 5 और है, if you want to touch, you can touch more. And even from a Gukesh perspective, I really like that instance where he says, तू किसका manager है? To that manager who was probably a fan of Vishy sir because of probably the age that they are into. So I want to understand from you that this contrasting personalities that you got together, was there an element of doubt initially whether this ad would do the way you want it to be? Because chess is not as mainstream as a sport, though like all of us have followed Vishwanathan Anand, then like everyone was rejoicing Gukesh's moment earlier last year. So like was there an element of doubt that like should Myntra forward be talking to chess grandmasters like this, or you were always sure that this is a great route to take?
Yeah. So two parts to this, right? So one is the script itself. When we heard the script and we heard the nuances of how the two would be versus who they are, I think that part was very simple for us to appreciate and
Yeah.
sign on in terms of how it would connect or not connect. The question is, would getting the two of them, and obviously from a chess background, get us the kind of scale that we want uh, in the country itself, right? So that was a little bit of the question mark that we had, which is uh, in a country which is dominated by cricket slash movies, would something like chess give us the scale that we want? Because Myntra operates on most things at huge scale. So that was the one that was a little bit of untested territory for us. And we just went in with a little bit of a, that was a bet that we kind of took, which is would it deliver? But the script itself and what that could do, I think we there was just lean in from the minute that we heard it. And full props to the folks at Braindead, because they managed to get the nuance of the little bit of between the two of them really well. It wasn't about someone younger just being brash with someone who was a senior, but it was a little bit of an interesting up down between the two of them, almost flexing versus with each other, that kind of built a very nice camaraderie. And I think that's what elevated the whole storytelling, that it was not about I'm a Gen Z, you don't get it, or I'm someone who's a lot more experienced, you don't get it, but the kind of up down between the two of them and building that in an interesting way. I think that part of storytelling really lifted it.
Yeah. And I think managing that within those 90 seconds, I mean, that was even more commendable. Um, in the kind of reactions that you've received to the video, what are some of your most favorite comments in the on the Myntra video?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, the very fact that the day it went out, the number of people who reached out to talk about it has been something that I don't think I've seen with any campaign before. So that instinctively gave me a sense of, okay, so this is good. It's a great start. Uh, but beyond that, what excited me the most were the stats, right? We got, I think on the first day, we got 3 million organic on Insta. And in the
Yeah.
first 2, 3 days, we got to some 7 million on Insta. We got to 8 million on YouTube. Uh, those numbers just were very, very special in terms of just organic reaches, engagement rates. And, we do a lot of work across these two platforms. Engagement rates are like 4x and 5x of what any other content has done for us historically here. So those pieces are super exciting for me. The fact that it broke out on many WhatsApp groups, and we got that feedback was again telling me that it was going nicely. The fact that it broke out on Reddit to me was the ultimate one, because if
Yeah.
there is one place which is very difficult for a brand to get to and where Gen Z are, it is Reddit. And to see multiple threads there, and all talking about it in a nice positive way, was amazing to see. uh, the way the chess community spoke about it, just
Yeah.
nationally and internationally, right? We've got amazing international mentions come out of this, and seeing that scale which we were worried about, right? that scale got delivered through this community, and I think that for me was very interesting to see as a play out, uh, and to see uh, just deliver these numbers, right?
Correct.
I think the comments were around the spaces of where what we expected, which was getting Gukesh to play the part that he did, the relationship between the two of them really standing out, and I think in the end of the day, that unexpectedness rubbed off on the brand, and for people to say, hey, what is this forward by Myntra? And we saw searches for everything related to forward go up multiple X. And that for me kind of did, was probably the most satisfying.
Like I think I one of the comments that I really liked was where someone said, "We got Gen Z version of Viswanathan Anand before GTA 6." And I
Yeah.
was like, getting a Gen X to be a Gen Z is a very long stretch. Like I think you spoke about the virality of the campaign, how it managed to break through the clutter, where there has been a lot of silence ever since we've returned from this winter New Year break. Very few campaigns have actually managed to surface on our feeds and on our timelines. And like you said, I mean, even for me, a lot of these campaigns were being shared. So marketing communities, I do understand on WhatsApp groups that keep sharing this because they spot some good work and they talk about it. But even in like your family slash friends WhatsApp groups, when we started seeing it, that is where I realized that okay, this is something really interesting that has happened. So apart from these, what are those success metrics that you define at your end to see that something a campaign like this has really worked for Myntra? I mean, are there like so reach and virality? Virality
Yeah, I
is
mean, these
one
are
thing.
inputs, right?
Yeah,
These are inputs for us. In the end of the day, what matters is, are there more people searching for forward?
yeah,
Is there more organic traffic that comes to our app searching for forward? And are there
mhm,
more new customers of forward, right? Those would be the
mhm,
metrics. We've definitely seen the first two already. And
yeah.
I'm quite certain that we will see the rest of it. So that part of it, on probably day two, day three, we've saw 2x, 3x searches for forward, and
Mhm.
that to me is a great indication uh, of this impacting outputs also.
Did you also see some attention towards the outfits Vishy sir and Gukesh were wearing? I mean, like, were these outfits from FWD and were they on those searches or like,
Yes, I mean, I think those outfits were from Forward on Myntra, but the intention was not for people to search specifically
yeah.
for those outfits. That was never the reckoning. I think
Mhm.
what we wanted to establish was that just as a Gukesh found his version of what he wanted to do, and Vishwanathan Anand finding his version of what he wanted to look, everyone needs to come and explore on Forward.
So for my listeners, I'm assuming like if these are marketers in the age group of like the Spotify tells me that these are marketers in the age group of 25 to 34, majority of them. What does Skibidi actually mean? I mean, if you,
That's my favorite. I was thinking about what's the kind of lingo that I would have looked at, and for me, from a fashion sense, drip was always the one word that I would have looked at. But
yeah.
post this campaign, it's got to be skippity.
Okay. And like, are there any other interesting instances or any fun anecdotes related to the making of this campaign? Any conversation that you might have had with the team or the teams might have experienced while this was being shot?
Yeah, for me, I think I didn't listen in, but the one I wanted to was when they pitched the ideas to the
Okay.
two of them, and to just hear what is their reaction to something like this. I mean, I wasn't on that call, but I heard that it was very interesting that both of them equally found it as interesting to take on as a project, and they could build on it. I think that was amazing to see. Uh, I've seen some of the behind the scenes, and the
Mhm.
number of takes that they had to do to get the Michael Jackson piece was hilarious. So I think those were interesting pieces, uh, and I think full marks to Gukesh on. I mean, I've seen videos of where when Viswanathan Anand walks in, he stands up, right? Because that's the respect that he has for him to mold himself to do this. I think
Yeah.
that's been amazing.
Yeah. So even I was watching some of the behind the scenes last night, and I saw I think there was one interview which Vishal and Devarsh have given to the Chess Base India, where they were sharing some instances. So they were mentioning that how Vishy sir knew more of Gen Z lingo than Gukesh did. Uh, and he had predicted this, that you think that he knows this, but I know this better. And the other thing that they mentioned, which actually struck out for me, was the number of takes they had to take to get Gukesh to be that angry or to emote to that thing that "Tu kiska manager hai." So Vishal was like, "Yeah, we might have a lot of cuter versions of "Tu kiska manager hai" from Gukesh, which would be even posted as a compilation. It's time for a quick wrap since we are on the quick call. Starting with, what's your favorite Gen Z lingo, Sundar?
Well, I think for me, drip was always the one that intrigued me, given the world of fashion that we are in. But yeah, right now I've got to say it is Skibidi, or as Vishy says, Scooby Doo.
One thing you've learned from observing pop culture and Gen Z behavior, given your position as well right now.
I mean, I think just getting attention is so much more difficult with them purely because of the level of content that they are exposed to. So for brands, I think we need to work so much harder just for attention. Uh, that's probably one piece from a Gen Z perspective.
Got it. And lastly, and this one for the advertising and marketing professionals listening to this, one fundamental difference between marketing to Gen X slash millennials and marketing to Gen Z. I mean, I know that you've done multiple hats at Myntra, but what is that one fundamental difference that you see?
I think for me, the big difference is just relationship with brands that the cohorts have. And I think that's an extension of how they probably view everything in life. I think Gen Z expect brands to resonate with them. So there is a functional, rational piece of what a brand, product, service needs to deliver, but there is a larger, emotional connect that it needs to resonate with their values. So that part of it is probably even more pronounced for Gen Z than it is for millennials. The difference between emotional and rational will exist for every audience. Of course, it does. But the how it needs to relate to each cohort is different. So for Gen Z, it has to connect with their personal values. It has to come through from a fairly authentic point of view. I think those are much more important. With millennials, there is a little bit more of emotion that can come through aspiration, emotion that can play out that way, and along with its rationality, kind of seal the deal. But with Gen Z, there is a brand emotional relevance building that is probably even more important.
One last thing, Sundar, actually, before wrapping up, I want to know, is it Myntra FWD or Myntra Forward? Means.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we talk about through the ad. Consumers actually use both, and which is one of the reasons we actually added it in.
Yeah.
From our perspective, we landed it as forward, but it's going to be interesting to see how Gen Z decodes it, because there are that last portion of the content actually came from consumer feedback, where some people call it FWD and they think that's a cooler way of doing it because of all the slang that they're used to
Yeah.
versus forward. But yeah, that's kind of where we've put it, almost for consumers to help us decode that.
Or this could probably become a campaign on its own, whether it is FWD or forward. Yeah.
It is worthy of that discussion. Hopefully, we reach that stature of a brand soon to have that discussion. But yeah, it could definitely lead to that.
Thank you so much, Sundar, for doing this. Congratulations to you and the team at BrainDad for cracking the virality code and like cracking it this way. I mean, this I think this campaign would go on to be talked about a lot at least this year for sure. And we look forward to see how this pans out for the brand.
Thank you so much,
I'll
Hitesh.
Thank you for jumping on this quick call with Hitesh. I'll see you in the next episode.